Alrighty. So basically what they were, oh, you just don't even, just, I did, because we need it. You're fine, get in here. So what we did is we kind of had a lot of challenges because I personally suffered really bad from electromagnetic stress disorder, which means that I was highly susceptible to any type of electromagnetic activity, phones, Wi-Fi's, electric currents. I couldn't wear watch batteries. And as I got older, I got really sick when the 900 megahertz phones came out. And we didn't know what it was at the time. I mean, I was just in excruciating pain, and it would just come at the most random times. Well, I went outside, and my neighbor's phone rang, and it just about dropped me to my knees. And I was like, why would my neighbor's phone ringing cause me so much pain? And it was the frequency that the phone was at. It was that first time when portable phones had, like, you could go 100 yards away and you could still hear and all that stuff. And it was like, oh. And then, of course, we had some stuff with Skylar. And so we just kind of evolved into working with energetics. And it was really from a health standpoint for me personally. We then kind of created a whole wellness program, what we called and branded the energetic lifestyle. And it's an oversimplification of a little bit more of a complicated process, but basically you can break health and wellness down into about 6 different categories. One of which is bones and muscles. And whenever you start to work out and get in shape, what you ended up doing is that's affecting those components first. And then as you start to clean up your diet, you start to burn fat, that starts to make your tissues healthier. The longer your tissues are healthier, it kind of gives you a mental clarity, and your brain starts to heal. And over time, your organs actually get replaced with healthier new tissue. Well, as your body gets healthier, your brain gets clearer, your emotional body starts to balance out. And as a spiritual being, you know, all that connectedness, if you will, comes into place. And, you know, that affects even your financial health, because one of the things that we found in spiritual, financial, and relationship issues were those were the 3 biggest stressors on your health. And we'll get into that in a second. But where we personally start off with is, because the body is physical, it's emotional, it's mental, where do we start? Well, sometimes you need nutrition, sometimes you need to detox, and sometimes you need to just think better thoughts. I know that sounds kind of random, but if you look at 3 patients that have liver issues, the liver has always been associated with anger. You know, if somebody's worried their stomach is in knots. Well, if somebody comes in, they may need nutrition because the liver is somewhat depleted. They may need to detoxify the liver because it's already full and there's no room for anything to work. Or they just may have some really bad, stressful stuff going on in their life, and you don't know whether to give them a nutrition, do a detox, or balance the emotion. Well, when we do what we call a biofeedback scan, it works a lot like the mechanics does for your car. He plugs you into a machine, and it says, here's your error code. Well, with our machine, it's a computerized multi-channel biofeedback device, and it introduces a frequency into your body, and it says, does this make you stronger? Does this make you weaker? If it makes you stronger, we want to add more of it. And if it makes you weaker, we want to detox it out of the system. But has anybody here ever walked into a room and you can, quote unquote, cut the tension with a knife? That's an emotional frequency that's being generated between the 2 people. And because it's being generated between the 2 people, if you could change that frequency or that impulse wave and add in the opposite one, you would remove the stress. That doesn't mean you fix the problem. It's just when somebody's in fight or flight, I have to kill you or I have to run away. Generally, that's not the best way to handle a problem in a relationship. So when you're in that fight or flight state, that's what causes that problem. Well, because that's a frequency that's being generated, we can actually capture those frequencies and measure them. When we do our scans, we have just a wide assortment of pharmaceutical grade nutritions that we can test for, go wide spectrum. Sometimes you need one from Innova, one from NutriWest, one from Simon.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So here's what happens in a fight or flight response. You know the whole, what happens if you're chased by a bear? Well, this is exactly what's going to go on. Your endocrine system is not designed to run at peak performance all the time. It's supposed to cycle through nicely. Well, you know, we do coffee, we do caffeine, we do, you know, traffic, all that different stuff. Well, what happens is when your body gets into fight or flight, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, you start to breathe heavier because you need to get hauling. That's not the time to sit back and digest some food. That actually stops your digestive process, which also stops the elimination process, which increases toxins. Well, in America, America runs on Dunkin', let's get Starbucks, and the 5-hour energies. All those things keep us in a fight or flight state. Well, as we stay in fight or flight, our adrenals kick in and they just keep burning. And if you look at this little section right here, it's got A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then over here, it's got a different organ. Well, if you took A plus B and added them together, that would make adrenaline that feeds your adrenals. And that's your get up and go. If you took that same B and added it to C, though, that would affect your thyroid, which is weight, metabolism, and your immune response. C plus D goes to ovaries, testes, reproduction, drives. D and E is the thymus, which is associated with the heart. When these are all crazy, what you end up doing is your pituitary gland can't regulate them. So it starts to pull from your pineal, which is your master regulator gland. So what happens is somebody gets into fight or flight, their adrenals are go, 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 go. And then they're like, I'm exercising, but I'm not losing weight. I get sick every time there's a cold around. For ladies, their cycles get messed up. For men, sex drive gets lost. When it affects the thymus and the heart, they get that shortness of breath, the heart flutters, skips beat, things like that. And ultimately, once it gets to the brain, you get we call brain fog. It's not Alzheimer's. It's you forget some of the answers some of the time. We call it sometimers or part-timers because you don't have all part of the answer. Or what day of the week is it? Oh, today's Tuesday. And so what happens is your body starts to get into this cycle where it continues to feed off the endocrine system instead of just pushing the adrenals when you get scared by a bear. The next aspect that we can do is what's called emotional recalibration. Emotional calibration is where you can access that emotional body the way that it ties into the fight or flight mechanism so you can actually reduce the physiological stress. Couple different examples of that are we go to work, we sit in traffic. In Atlanta, you can sit in traffic for an hour and a half. But you can be sitting in traffic or almost die in a car accident on your way to work. And the next thing you know, for the next 8 hours, you're in fight or flight. Well, once that hits, you've got a 6 to 8 hour window where you're still pushing adrenals. So it's now 9 o'clock. You're in full on fight or flight. About 5 o'clock, you're like, okay, I can handle this. I'm done. I'm about ready to crash. You get in the car and you get into fight or flight again. And now you're in this adrenal stress mode, but you are at home. So you have flighted. So the first thing you do is you pick a fight with whoever's around. Spouse, kids, friends, you know, whatever it takes. And it lasts for a while until your body finally collapses. And then it keeps you into this physiological cycle of burning the endocrine stress system. You're not getting the proper food. Why? Because you're running on adrenalines. Your digestion is hurried, so you get a leaky gut syndrome because it's pushing food through because you can't like chill out, unwind, and get stuff done. What gets really cool with the emotional recalibration is we can work on one person and then we can work on another person. And because the body is bioelectric, what we found when we started working with our cancer patients and whatnot is that we could get the body balanced out and yet they still have all the quote unquote cancer markers or stress markers, fibromyalgia, arthritis. And that's because when they hold hands with their most significant other, all these other issues come up. And we can actually work on that. It's an interesting story. I was working on balancing my sister out, and I'm really good at what I do. I mean, the man that invented the machine, I work on him. And I couldn't balance her, and I couldn't balance her, I couldn't balance her. And so my Lexi was about 3 at the time, and she came down, and all she did was hop up into Auntie Toria's lap and sat there, and every single point balanced. And I was like, what?
Oh, man.
How in the world did that happen? My sister's entire physiology changed. And so because we have an imprinter that has a little well, so if you're on a medication, we can decrease your sensitivity to it, like an allergy protocol. I had my daughter stick her hand in the well, and I said, Lexi, just put your hand in there. And I captured it like it was going to be a supplement test. And then I shot it into Victoria. Everything balanced. And she stayed balanced for weeks. It was really kind of crazy. But that brought us into the, wow, the people we're around and our relationships that are important to us really do affect our physiological health. And then as we branched out, we started to test, we put all of our kids together, and, oh, you're the problem today. Then we did basketball teams and sports teams, and then we do corporate executives, things like that, because there's that one person that like triggers things, and once it triggers, it creates a crescendo. But if you can kind of get everybody on the same page, your productivity goes up, your balance goes up, and it's been an interesting thing that we've pioneered, and it's had some amazing results. Couple of things that we do for all of our clients. Number one thing you can do for your body is drink 75% of your body weight in ounces of Kangen water. The next thing you can do is the ketogenic diet. We have grown up, or at least I did, in a time where the idea was 6 to 11 servings of breads, grains, pastas, and cereals, fat-free. Well, your brain is actually 70% fat. So if you have a low-fat, no-fat, reduced-fat diet, you have a low-fat, no-fat, reduced-fat brain. And so what we try to teach people is eat according to your blood type, ketogenically. So your O blood type is more of your carnivore. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael. I'm an O. I consider myself a second-hand vegetarian. I prefer to get my veggies after food has eaten it. A blood types, I like to be a vegetarian. Everybody should be a vegetarian because I feel fabulous on it. A little bit of fish, don't eat meat, lots of fruits and veggies. What happens with your B blood types, they can be doing everything right, but if they eat chicken and corn, it completely stresses their thyroid, and then it shuts down their immune response, so they get sick, and it weakens the immune system, activates cortisols, stresses the lectins, and it really sends the body into a spin. One of the things that we do to help people with the ketogenics is we offer the ketones. And when you have the ketones, what you end up doing is you can literally drink bioavailable ketones that are identical to what's produced in your liver without going through a 30-day fast. And it helps with mental clarity, focus, and things like that. When we first did it, we did it to lose weight, and we'd been drinking the water for years. But you actually can drink it and do a brain scan, and in under an hour, we had 34% functional improvement in the brain and neurology. So we started to use that because the emotional components are all in the brain. You have your Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autism, Asperger's. You're feeding the pineal, you're feeding that pituitary that's trying to regulate all the other organs. And so it's just a really amazing superfood. Another aspect, and I think Cheryl's got one of these, and I'm not sure if Cindy does or not, but you can do the vibrational therapies. And what that does is NASA was having a problem with the astronauts because they'd go up in space and they'd have bone density loss, they'd have cardiovascular insufficiency, the lymphatics weren't working and all that stuff. And they found that if they did a plate that oscillated and was creating an impact, it actually fixed a lot of that. And so you can actually mobilize stored fats, increase lymphatic drainage, and get the body working much more efficiently just from using some vibrational therapies. There's a lot of machines out there today that you can use. My personal favorite, yeah, it's the most expensive one, but isn't that the way that it is the pulsed electromagnetics. You can get these in your clinic. What this does is your cells actually pulse. They open, they close, they open, they close. And when they open up, they bring in oxygen and nutrition. And when they clamp down, they excrete CO2 and toxins. And then what happens is, as you get sick, it doesn't have that big pump. It just kind of twitches. Well, when you use the MG PEMF, it forces them to collapse and open, and it really works that out. And you actually increase the oxygen uptake, you increase the cellular metabolism, you get rid of more toxins while you sit in a chair and watch TV. This is actually the device that got me started on my journey 14 years ago. I actually have one on today. Everybody sees the little buttons that are on their phones and all that kind of stuff. This one is actually different than anything else that we've found. One, there's a ton of clinical research, but it increases your body signal so you're less susceptible to electromagnetic stress. Wi-Fi, cell phones, TVs, things like that. If you think about old school TVs with the rabbit ears, you could grab the antenna and you'd get a better signal. And then you'd put aluminum foil on it and all that stuff. If you had a mean older brother, he'd make you hold it while he watched TV like I did. But you have hemoglobin in your bloodstream, which is bioavailable metal. And that iron actually works as an antenna to attract all the electromagnetic stress. So if you think about how many cell phones are around you in a 7-mile radius, this will help protect you from that. Couple other things that we can do is we've got air fresh units, we've got things to protect you from computers. We've got other stuff that will actually pull ambient electricity out of your home so that like an outlet will work, but it doesn't keep the whole thing hot until you go to use it. We actually inadvertently discovered that because it reduces your power bill by about 30% because it recirculates what they call loose energy in the home. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do to rebuild the body from the inside out. And those are just a few of them. If you have any questions, I'll answer them right now, but this is my email address. It's not that complicated, drmichaelexplains@gmail.com. If you want to set up an appointment for us, you can get in touch with Dr. Abby at 404-387-3678. A lot of this stuff is already on YouTube with Dr. Michael Explains, and we'll be glad to help you out. You can mail in hair and saliva samples. We can run a scan. You can sometimes get in there and, we come to visit. We've gone to different locations. I know that we've been to Cheryl's and we've been to Cindy's and set up appointments. A lot of times people will get worked on preliminary, get the nutrition going stuff, and then when we come do a conference or something, we can do some actual imprinting and a little bit more. But we're glad to help you with all that. Any questions?